What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really special knife to show you. I actually had a whole bunch of other knives planned to show on the channel, and on Christmas Eve, my buddy Dave, the gentleman who bought the Todd Begg Bugatti with the black eye steel C frame. If you haven't seen that video, it's on the channel a ways back. He surprised me. He called me and he said, "Hey, I've got something really cool to show you. You want to come down and meet with me and let's talk about it." And we had been talking with his business partner and kind of getting his business partner into knives as well. And I thought he must have bought him a really nice gift, a knife, for Christmas, and he wants me to take a look at it. And so I was excited. So I came in and he handed me a box with my name on it. And so I was legitimately shocked, and I knew, at that moment, I was like, that's got to be a knife, So I was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. Traded the usual back and forth, and I open it up, and it says Todd Begg Steelcraft series, and I about fell over. I do know about this series. I'm very familiar with it. Collaborative effort between Todd Begg Knives and Riot Knives. And I'm well aware of the quality of the knives that have come out of this series and how popular they've been. So I was really excited. So anyways, I know, quit talking about it. Let's open it up. Box is super cool. Has sort of a magnetic thing going on here. Then you have this. Sorry guys, it's hard to do this with one hand. I don't have Ricky here today. You've got a little card that you scan to register it, and then you have your ticket of authenticity or certificate of authenticity. And then inside the box, if I can get it to hold still, is the knife. And a lot of you are going to be familiar with this design. The original was the full-size Sun Tzu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Kwaiken. This is the new 3/4 Kwaiken. And it is an absolutely beautiful knife. So at this moment, and I've been playing with this, I played with it all through Christmas, but at the moment that I pulled this out of the box, I was just in shock. Number one, just way too nice of a gift, and just such that was so nice, So David, if you're watching this again, I know I've said thank you a million times, but seriously, thank you. This is so awesome. An absolutely amazing knife. And I'm sure you caught that. The initial action of this guy is just amazing. It is an absolutely excellent flipper. The smoothness of this deployment is unlike anything except for the other Todd Begg that I've handled, which is, of course, David's Bugatti. Let's real quick do some size comparisons so you know what we're working with. I do not have the Mannix with me today because I am now carrying my new Shaman. So I'm going to line it up next to the Shaman and also a Hinder Eclipse, just so you can kind of see the size we're working with here. The Kwaiken, or the 3/4 Kwaiken, is about 8.3 inches overall, so it's very similar in size to these knives. Though it is substantially less bulky than the other two knives that I've got here for comparison. So let me go ahead and put those back down there. The Kwaiken has one means of deployment. It is a flipper. The blade sinks all the way into the handle. You have a medium strength detent, though I can tell you there's absolutely no way that this knife is going to flip back out. And I imagine it has something to do with how deep it sinks in there and the angle of the blade once the detent ball is fitting into the hole. It does not take a whole lot of pressure to get it to deploy, and it is very smooth and very quick and just feels, oh my gosh, there's no resistance whatsoever on that detent ball on the blade, or the ceramic bearing system that Todd Begg Knives uses it's excellent all the way around. The blade is sort of this upswept. It's kind of a scimitar style blade, kind of an upswept clip point. I'm not sure exactly what you call this, so if I'm stumbling around the term and somebody's got it, go ahead and let me know. You have kind of a double swedge up top here. You can see what I'm talking about. There's a little tiny swedge right here, and then you've got another one right there, and it drops down into the main bevel. You've got a nice flat right here with a polished groove, fuller, however you want to call that. And then these nice satin flats in contrast to the satin on the blade, you know, where those grind lines are showing up. It's just real nice. It's a busy blade, but it's very attractive in a lot of ways. And I'm glad they put that fuller on there because that's a nice touch to a blade that would otherwise have a spot or a blank canvas for something else to be going on. The handle is made out of black DLC or black PVD coated titanium. You have a nice polished front to the pivot hardware. The signature Todd Begg groove with the holes in there, or fuller, however you want to call that. And then you have these beautiful voidless carbon fiber inlays. Just so beautiful. I love that. The handles are contoured, and the inlays actually match that contouring perfectly. So the only thing that you feel on the handle, you don't feel the seams here where the carbon fiber is inlaid into the handle. You just feel the groove there where it's cut out in the titanium. You've got 3 screws back here, but take a look at the bevels there on the lips of the screws. They are polished. These little teeny tiny areas where the screws sit in are polished, and I just love that. It's a little tiny touch. It's also like that around the pivot. That polishing that's done, just nice, just a nice touch. You know, this particular knife runs $400, and for a lot of people, you're immediately going to click out of this video and go, "That's way too much money, and I'm not interested." But for those of you who are familiar with this world and this caliber of knives, we are in the same ballpark as Rick Hinderer knives, and I am a huge Hinderer fan. Also I want to say for people who have been telling me, you know, hey, you really need to try out a Riot. Now in a way I am, and I get it. You were right. These are excellent. But anyways, we're in the same caliber as Rick Hinderer knives. Now I love my Rick Hinderer knives, and they're nothing but quality. But in terms of just the extra machining that goes into these, you know, the nice contouring, the smooth edges, these inlays that are set in the titanium, you know, the extra things he's doing or that they're doing with the machining process on these knives, and just the extra touches that go into it, plus this unbelievable action. You know, when I was talking about this with the Bugatti, and I stumbled around my explanation of how it felt to flip something that's this smooth. I said the only time your brain registers what happens is when the knife is fully locked out. What I meant is that you break that detent and then you feel it lock out. You don't feel any friction in between. There's nothing. It's just detent breaking and lockout. It's like somebody, you know, coated a glass surface in vegetable oil. It is super smooth, and until you feel it, there's no way, you know, for you to quite understand exactly. And me too, you know, until I had handled a Begg knife or even a collaborative effort, you know, like the Steelcraft series, I had no idea, and I was like, what are they talking about? How could it be that much better than a ZT? It's definitely better than a ZT, absolutely, no question. I love my ZT knives, but this is a totally different ballpark here. This video is going to be more of an overview, guys, because this was a gift. I have not really carried this thing yet. I've just been enjoying it and flipping it and kind of playing with it. Yes, you know, there is a definite difference here. Moving on to the back side, this is the adjustment side of the pivot, also polished. You have the steel lock bar insert. The back of the screws have actually been rounded off and polished. The screw heads are on the underside, and I imagine that was an aesthetic choice. It does really look nice like this. You know, you don't have the screw head sticking out there, and it looks clean. 3 more inlays on this back side, and then you have this beautiful 3D milled pocket clip that's got a contrasting black DLC and satin polish on it, and that's just really nice. You know, that's another extra touch that they did to just make it look nice. You have the signature Todd Begg, sorry, here, gonna decline a call real quick. You have the signature Todd Begg ball bearing on the pocket clip, which allows smooth retraction of the knife from your pocket, as well as entering it into your pocket. It's real nice. In fact, here, I'll demonstrate real quick. Push that in, no problem. That's about where she sits. Pull, super easy. Real nice. Oh, just about caught my thumb there. Thank you, fingernail. Anyways, We've got 3 more screws back here. You have the lanyard holder, which is actually attached to the backspacer on the back. This backspacer's been polished, and I've had my fingers all over it, so the camera's not going to do it justice. But it sits completely out of the way in terms of the frame of the knife. So there's no question as far as, like on Spyderco, they kind of have issues sometimes as to where to put the lanyard hole in relationship with the pocket clip. Well, that's not an issue here. And even though you might say, well, now you don't have this space up here for your finger because the lanyard hole is in the way, I would say it's in kind of an unobtrusive place. This is generally unused territory on a knife that has a handle that's shaped like that, and I think that was a really nice choice to put it up there. They polish it on this side, and then they give it kind of a satin finish on this side. They also polish it on the inside, which is really nice. They don't have to do that, but they do, and it's pretty cool. So really, really nice all the way around. Another thing I want to talk about, when I looked at this, I thought, okay, you've got this kind of twin flipper tab look it's meant to resemble maybe an old school stiletto. But I found 2 uses for that, for these two, just from fidgeting, and I have no idea if this was an intended thing. But on a knife like this, where the blade doesn't come out from the handle or doesn't seat out of the handle at all, it is truly a one means of deployment knife. You have the flipper tab, and that's it. I've found that if you're in a situation where you really don't want to aggressively flip it out, you can simply sort of do a pull and push. My thumb fits perfectly right here on that ramp, and then I just use my other finger right there, and I just sort of wheel it around with my thumb, and it's real nice. The other thing that's nice is this area right here. You can do the normal push right there. You don't have to do the double clutch thing like you do on the 0562, but you can catch it past the detent here and then simply close it, or you can do this cool trick, which is completely and totally unnecessary, but still really fun. This is the detent ball catching the frame right there. You can kick that other flipper tab right here, actually, in that position, get it caught on the on that where there would normally be a ramp, right where the detent ball is catching the frame, and you sort of reverse flick it back into place. And that's cool. It's fun to do. It's also kind of risky. I can't believe I haven't cut myself with that yet, but I've found myself having fun with the knife like that, so that's pretty cool. Really, really enjoy this blade. A little bit of history behind the word Kwaiken, because I was like, now wait a sec. Boker has a Kwaiken. Jake Hoback has the Kwai back, which I'm sure it looks very similar. This design, this curved blade, and this sort of straight handle design. Brief history on that. Me essentially just Googling information. A Kwaiken was a small knife traditionally carried by Japanese women. It was generally a utility knife, and then at some point got adopted into samurai culture, where it would essentially be the knife that they used if their husbands were critically wounded in battle or incapacitated. They would use the knife to end their husband's existence as well as their own. That's super dark, but that's where this comes from. And I told David, I was like, hey, did you know this? And he was like, no, that's crazy. But that's where the term is. That's what a Kwaiken is, I guess. So that's interesting. And this is a very popular design. I'm sure those aren't the only 3 makers that have knives named Kwaiken. I've seen this design before, but I found that hyper interesting. It does make sense that this would be a blade shape that would be very proficient in doing something like that. I would imagine that this blade would cut through a lot of different materials probably very efficiently. This is a very slicey blade shape. It does go through paper like it's nothing, like it's not even there. It's kind of a lightsaber, or what it feels like to me anyways. It does have a very thin tip, a very thin splinter getter. And I would imagine the call for this knife, the 3/4 Kwaiken, was due to people just not needing the excessive size of the original Sun Tzu Kwaiken. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, guys, so I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But the original Kwaiken design through the Steelcraft series in Todd Begg, which I imagine was 9 or 9¼ inches overall. Imagine that was just too big. This is a much more EDC friendly size, and I would imagine weighs between 4.5 and 5 ounces is what it feels like. Feels a little bit lighter than the XM18 and the Shaman, and those are about 5¼ 5.5 ounces. This is a much more EDC friendly size of that knife, and honestly, it would make a decent EDC. The profile of the knife here is very narrow, despite even having these two tabs right here, or as Nick Shabazz might say, a twin pocket peggers. Yeah, actually, it is a very comfortable carry. I'll go ahead and put it back in my pocket so I can kind of talk while I'm talking about this. But yeah, I'm not really, it's not a knife that I'm ultra aware of while I'm walking around. Sorry, that angle makes it seem like there's a lot more sticking out of your pants than you would think. But this is about what's sticking out of your pants. It is very easy to pull out and you know, deploy, and the blade shape would be useful in a number of EDC situations. It looks like the blade's probably going to come in at about, let's compare it with the Eclipse that doesn't have the choil. The Eclipse has like a 3.35 inch cutting edge, and from what I'm seeing here, they're about the same cutting edge. So you're probably looking at just shy of 3.5 inches on the cutting edge. Materials are very durable. It does have an internal stop pin that is curiously located more towards the front of the knife. You can kind of see it in there. There's that bar that is, yeah, right there. You can see that bar. Those aren't the bearings, because the bearings are more back here towards the pivot. But that bar there is the internal stop pin. And that allows for everything to just sort of look nice and seamless and still function in the open and closed position. You have this nice open space back here. For whatever reason, I haven't figured this out yet, the backspacer drops there at the back, and maybe that's just for aesthetics. You know, it does kind of look nice. But you have this nice, clean flow-through design. The knife is busy in areas where it's aesthetically pleasing, and it's not busy in areas where it's unnecessary. I don't know if that really makes sense or not, but that's kind of what that's my opinion of how this looks. I'm very pleased with this. I think, you know, if you are interested in the Todd Begg Steelcraft series, for the money that you pay, you are definitely getting a knife that feels like it costs a lot more money. I have handled $500, $600, $700, $800 knives that feel, you know, subpar compared to this, or at best the same in terms of the overall quality, fit and finish, and the action of the flipper. So yeah, you know, for a lot of people this is going to be way too expensive, but for those of you who are familiar with this price range and regularly purchase knives in this price range, I can tell you, you will be blown away by the quality of these Steelcraft series knives. Now, this isn't the only one that I've handled in this series, because David's business partner also received a knife which was also part of the Steelcraft series, and I got to handle that one too, and my opinion of it is that it's the same thing. I mean, you have overwhelming quality and fit and finish and all that stuff. So we'll go over that one as well. I don't want to ruin it just yet, but yeah, these are awesome. So I am going to kind of expand my mind on, or broaden my horizon, so to speak, on companies like Riot, and hopefully that there are other companies like that that are creating knives of this caliber, you know, and I mean knives that are manufactured in China, but held to a very high standard of quality, because this is excellent. This is awesome. I love how this feels. This is an outstanding knife. And also, you know, the colorations and things, you know, the contrasts. Matte black, carbon fiber, polished satin, and almost a mirror reflectivity on this backspacer back here. There's no colors. It's just different shades of black and gray and satin, but man, does it look good. This is a very, very aesthetically pleasing knife. I showed it to Ricky, who, if you're not familiar with my channel, Ricky sits in with me and does overviews and reviews with me, but he said that might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. And you know what? Yeah, absolutely. This does have an aesthetic appeal it's over the top, but it's cool and it's classy, you know? Let's take a look at that lockup there so you guys know. You know, I flipped this about 1,000 times over the weekend, and that's where we're sitting on lockup. Very nice. And of course, centering is absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. That tip gets very close, but it doesn't hit. You know, I've flipped this 1,000,000 times. That thing has not moved. It's perfectly center, and it is not touching any surface near at the point or on the blade or anything. So, very cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. And if you'd like to check out my other content, you know, I've got lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there is definitely more coming. I'll give you a nice close-up of this all the way down so you can kind of see here before I end the video. Sorry, trying to make the lighting work in my favor. Nice close-up of the blade. Really, really attractive. Anyways, thanks again for watching, everybody. Hope you have a great day.